The following special presentation of a live discussion on the SPLOST SIX referendum during the What's Up in West Georgia program, which aired on the all-new WGMI 1440 The Train during the morning of Wednesday, October 8th, has been edited for replay at this time.
WGMI, Bremen, Carrollton, the new 1440 The Train.
The views and opinions expressed in this commentary do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the owners or operators of WGMI. Special local option sales tax. It's been around for a good number of years. The current SPLOST is about to expire on the 15th of March 2015. On April 1st, if there's a new SPLOST, it will take effect on April 1st, 2015. Am I correct?
That sounds right.
Okay, all right. Now, with that being said, so that the listener can identify your name to your voice, Ann Krim?
I'm very excited to have been invited to attend this discussion this morning.
Eric McDonald.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here.
Nathan Forrester.
I'm also glad to be here this morning.
Okay. Susan Forrester.
Good morning, listeners.
And George Healy.
Good morning, everyone.
You're all residents. Last year there was a SPLOST referendum vote, which was defeated in the November 13th election cycle. Now the SPLOST is back on the ballot, and there were, if one looked in the Tallapoosa Journal or the Gateway Beacon in the classifieds, you saw like column after column of information. And I'm sure when you go to the polls, if you're going to go to the courthouse and you're going to ask, hey, can I see what this thing looks like? You're going to read through it and your eyes are going to start glazing over. But that's how it is. If you come to commission meetings or city council meetings, if you come, then, and participate, then you would know what is going on. And there wouldn't be any need for me to be doing this. This is a public service of WGMI Radio. What's Up in West Georgia officially begins. Who would like to start with what is going on?
Well, I'm here really as John Q. Public. I have not made my mind up as to whether or not I'm going to vote for the SPLOST extension. And I will tell you the main reason why is I don't know what the money is used for. I went on the website in the past couple of days, websites in the past couple of days of the four cities. I didn't look at Temple because only a portion of Temple is in Haralson County. But of the four cities, only Bremen has anything about SPLOST on it, and it's not very detailed. Haralson County does not have any information about it. The only thing that I can look at is the amount of revenue that they anticipate in the 14-15 budget for local sales and use taxes. That doesn't say SPLOST, but I'm assuming since a penny is a penny, penny equals a penny, that it's probably they're projecting the same amount of revenue for that yearly period. Bremen does have a summary of 5 categories, which include public safety, water and wastewater, recreation and library, debt service, roads and bridges. Now, there isn't anybody here from Bremen, but if anybody has any information about it, one of the items listed is debt service. First of all, the total projected for the 5-year period was $5,317,000. It was a 5-year, 4-year period, whatever it was. They show a total expended to date of $2,900,000. So we're a little over $2 million different from what they projected and what they've actually used. My question is, what does the debt service mean? Was that money that was spent and it's not listed on here as a category, or was that money that was rolled over from previous indebtedness and was used to pay off from current bonds that was used to pay off previous indebtedness, as a school board did?
From my understanding, that was used by the city of Bremen to pay off a capital lease, which is just another debt instrument for the public safety facility that is near the hardware store in Bremen, across from the People Pleaser convenience store near New Bern Field. Right. And so, I believe that debt is longer term than the previous SPLOST, So a portion of the 215 forward SPLOST would go to pay additionally toward that facility.
Okay. So the debt service per se is just paying off an obligation, I guess bonds or a mortgage?
It's a capital lease. I don't understand exactly
yeah, I
the instrument
kind
used,
of
but
how
yeah,
it
it's
works,
some sort of debt.
The city at some point in time will own the building.
That's correct.
Yeah. I think in general, all the cities may have a need, and I say may. I'm undecided. I'd like to know more about what the money is used for. And the big problem I have when I go to meetings, and I go to the school board meetings, I go to the council meetings, I don't go to the city meetings because I'm a county resident, although I probably should, especially Buchanan. But I do shop in those cities. Whatever the sales tax situation is, it's money out of my pocket. And plus, a portion of what is collected in the county goes to the cities under this share, service for delivery arrangement. So my question is, what is the money used for? And the other thing is, I keep hearing it's SPLOST money. This is not a money tree at the courthouse that people can go out and pick $100 bills off of. It's still tax money. And I don't see accountability. I can look at a budget. I have a Haralson County budget right here. I can go up there and get other budgets. I'm sure I can do it with the other cities also. Sometimes they're not readily available. You have to file a little form for it. Sometimes they charge you for it. I think it should be readily available. But I'd like to know more about what the money is used for. Now, I know going forward that's difficult to do, but we should be able to look and see what it was used for in the past as an indicator of what would be the anticipated uses in the future. Donald?
I can address the city of Tallapoosa, being a resident of Tallapoosa. I do attend almost every city council meeting. So I can speak on behalf of the city of Tallapoosa regarding the SPLOST money, the projects, the totals spent to date, and any remaining funds in SPLOST 5. The city of Tallapoosa maintains a printout in their lobby, which I think would probably be a very good recommendation for the other cities in the county as well.
I agree.
But any resident of Tallapoosa can go in City Hall, in their lobby. The printout stays there. It's updated every month that shows exactly what projects the city of Tallapoosa has spent their SPLOST funds on, the amount spent to date, and any balance of money that is going to be anticipated to complete those projects, because they are not complete. I mean, they're infrastructures, they're capital improvement projects, but I do know Tallapoosa does provide that to its citizens, and I think it would be very good if the other cities in the county as well provided that same information. So I can speak to that for the city of Tallapoosa.
Can you give an example? And I don't want to put you on the spot, but just do you remember any of the items? Not in detail, but just a rough estimate, like sewers or roads.
They have been replacing water and sewer lines as well as gas lines. They have been trying to do some paving. There are quite a few roads that do need to be paved, particularly now that they have installed some new sewer lines. The damage to the roads to replace those sewer lines will have to be repaired. They do use their money for their recreation department. They have their water treatment plant right now is in need of some equipment out there. SPLOST money pays for that. These are all, and again, I can only speak directly for the city because I'm familiar with that, but these are all necessary to the functioning of the city of Tallapoosa to accommodate their citizens with their expectations. And these are projects that are not in their budget. That's not part of their budget. And right now the city of Tallapoosa has a GFA loan, which is a long-term low-interest loan, and that was to accommodate some of the major infrastructure that the Tallapoosa had to do. And this was their way of funding it. That's why that particular loan is considered a debt for Tallapoosa to be paid from the SPLOST.
Does anybody else have information about other cities or the county for that matter?
I can agree with what this lady is saying over here. Just on Paulding County, you can look up on their website and see the current projects that are underway with SPLOST money in Paulding County. And in Carroll County, you can actually open up the PDF and see the account for the capital outlay projects each month. So, in other words, we see that there's total transparency in these counties around us. I think we need to set up, each city needs to set up, and the county government as well, to set up where this is totally transparent, and then people like me and you, George, won't be asking, where is the money being spent?
Yeah, I'm not even questioning.
Yeah.
You know, I just would like to know why. I am questioning it, but it's not for. I'm not questioning anybody's integrity. I just would like to know what the needs are.
I think that's
How is
one
it
of the
allocated?
biggest challenges in at least the local governments is the decision to spend a little bit of money on making sure that we can find information as citizens available specifically on the web. You know, you can go, again, you pointed these printouts from these other communities, and it's just put on there, and it really doesn't cost that much, but it's just getting the staff and the elected officials focused on ways to deliver that that are, you know, up to date. You and I, a lot of us go on the website. Well, I think a lot of people don't consider that as a viable option, and they staple it to a bulletin board in the lobby. I'm with you. I would rather sit and look it up. I wish that I could pull my phone out right now and look it up.
People.
Yeah. So I totally agree with it, with the transparency as well as the ability to find that information, because I honestly believe that this money is not being spent to fund houses in the Bahamas, but is being used to buy fire trucks. I know in the city of Bremen, it's fire trucks, Newbern soccer field, police cars, all of these things that we as citizens want to have. You know, when I wake up in the morning, I want to make sure that if my house got burglarized, the police shows up. If it catches on fire, I want them to show up, and I want them to have the equipment to put my house out, or at least keep my neighbor's house from catching on fire. I want them to be able to rescue me if I need that. And when I get up in the morning, I want to when I use the toilet in the facilities, when I flush it, I want it to go away. And when I go to work, I want to be able to get there. Those are those citizen demands that I have as a citizen of Haralson County. And those are the type of things that SPLOST, that we pay for with that penny. One of the big challenges that the property owners are facing right now is that the federal government has run out of money, so they're stopped feeding the states. The state has run out of money, so they're stopped feeding the communities. Absolutely. So all of these citizen demands that we have and these things that we expect have to be paid somewhere. And it's coming down to the property tax. I mean, it's just fallen down to the lowest place, and the last stop is the property tax owner. So this is one of those ways that they can at least pick out those capital type large expenditure projects and pay for those. And I wish that I had come prepared with the list of what they had done in the SPLOST 5 and specifically SPLOST 6. I know that those exist.
About Haralson County?
In Haralson County.
Well, I know one of the big expenditures was the rec field in the rec building. I don't know which SPLOST that went under, but I know under the current SPLOST, they've developed the rec fields up by the rec center, which I think is a good use of money. I don't know that enough people use the recreation center to justify its expense now, but if the county is going to grow, and I said when I moved out here 25 years ago, now is the time to buy property for expansion of recreational facilities when the price of the land was, 10% of what it is now. So I'm not against that, but again, I have no knowledge of, other than those big items, what's the money spent for?
Wasn't there a millage increase at the end of July in the county for everybody that resides in Haralson County, whether they live in the municipalities or the unincorporated areas?
Yeah. It was just over 3 mills, I believe. And it's one of those things that occurs. One of the things with local government is kind of the problem with local government. Okay, so we have those demands that we talked about earlier. Governments have 3 ways of delivering those services. They can raise taxes or in fees when you go use those rec fields, or when you pay the $25 garbage tag fee to use the convenience center. Those type things. When you pay those things, that's a fee or a tax. So they can raise fees and taxes. Number 2, they can cut services, and then number 3 is they can grow. That's really the only way that a county government or a city government has to function as a service delivery vehicle to us. And even if in one of our jobs, I'm with the chamber, and we're pro-growth and pro-business, and one of the ways that you grow is through industry. Even if we could magically land another Honda in Tallapoosa and it started operation tomorrow, the tax implication with no incentives wouldn't hit the tax roll for a year to a year and a half based on how all the assessors and all that works. So we can't grow our way.
Didn't give,
that's right.
you know,
Assuming
breaks,
you didn't
tax
give a
breaks, which they
long-term
usually
tax
do,
break.
is
Which we
what
would
I'm
have to.
saying.
Yeah, it's everybody else is going to do it, and if they're going to come here, we're going to have to do it. So, we can either stand on our high ground and say we're not going to give you tax breaks and say see you later, or we can get in line for 20% of $100 million. So, it's a tough battle, it's a tough race, but that's one of the things we have to do. But even if we assume that there were no incentives, the county citizen wouldn't see that from a service delivery for a year to a year and a half, even if it could be built in one day. So it is a tough that we can't grow our way out of this problem fast enough today. Now, 5 years from now, maybe we can have a different discussion, but today they just have to do it.
Even if you have growth, you're going to have additional expenses.
That's correct.
You're going to need additional fire, police,
And
government
we're
services.
going to address some of those things
That's the
today,
chicken
too.
and the egg thing. But
Yeah.
again, it gets back to I don't have a warm and fuzzy feeling about who's making decisions about what projects are being funded. And I'm not faulting anybody, but it would be nice to know when I vote, yea or nay, that I've made a good decision based upon how the money's being spent.
I want to add a correction into there that Derek made. I think the total millage increase was 2.43%. The official millage rate increase was 1.77%, and the additional that'll bring us up to the 2.43 was because of a reduction in land prices and an adjustment in millage rate to maintain the current county budget. So that's what we see. The total of 2.43 mills is going to be certainly reflected on the tax bill that I just received.
And mine.
So we just received, and this doesn't have the previous project, this is SPLOST 6, and it's not specific, I think, enough for what you guys are looking for, but it does break it down. And and the biggest so the SPLOST is $21 million, and it's a 6-year SPLOST, which is different than one of the things we've looked at before. And that's one of the things the voters should consider is that instead of a 5-year SPLOST, which has been typical in the past, a 6-year SPLOST would add an additional year and make $21 million, of which Bremen receives just under $4 million, Buchanan $709,000. Tallapoosa just a tad over $2 million, Waco $330,000, and then the county receives the lion's share of that. The remainder, just under $14 million, of which their projects, the largest project is the jail, which was the biggest. And you were talking to Jerry earlier in the discussion, which was the biggest hang-up in the last election. Was that jail hadn't been committed to by the elected officials. They hadn't come out and said, you give us a SPLOST, we'll go and do the boot camp or the jail. They hadn't made a direction. They just said, give us some money for a jail.
Have they made a decision yet?
I believe they have, that it's going to go towards the boot camp renovations.
Has that been communicated to the public?
No.
I haven't heard anything about it, and I go to most of the meetings.
This may be the understanding of some, but not the understanding of all. And so we are, in other words, we are going to build a jail, but we don't know exactly what it's going to be.
I did point out at one of the commission meetings prior to the previous SPLOST that they have not told the voters what they want to do. And the voters are reluctant to give them carte blanche to spend money unless they have an idea what it's for.
I can't tell you exactly where I've seen this figure. It may have been in a meeting, it may have been an email I received. I honestly can't tell you exactly, but it was my understanding that $7.7 million of the county's portion of the SPLOST 6 would be allocated to the boot camp, to the renovation of the boot camp.
But does not the what was advertised in the paper, it doesn't say boot camp, it says jail.
That's true. Now, I served on a committee last year with the county regarding SPLOST. Last year, there was no true designation as to using the boot camp. However, this year, again, it's my understanding, and I do agree with you, then it needs to be clarified. But it is my understanding that the $7.7 million will be designated for the boot camp renovation.
My question then, therefore, if it was because of the defeating last year, the courthouse was going to be renovated, and that got totally thrown out of the picture. And this year, there's nothing about the courthouse. We all know that the courthouse needs renovation because of those that cannot get up the stairs.
Accessibility is correct.
Accessibility issues still remain.
Well, the courthouse does have an elevator next to the stairs, which is available.
Well, I'm talking about if they have to go up those other back stairs or go down those back stairs.
Access to the law library is where the problem is in the county courthouse. In other words, it is not totally ADA compliant at this point, and it would take just a little bit of effort to get that up to it.
And you have a problem with the jurors if you have jurors.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah,
jurors that are handicapped as well. You know. So those could be covered, and we see that reflected in the SPLOST under government building renovations. In other words, that is on the ballot on the SPLOST, and it could be covered underneath those. So I do see that in the language.
That's a wish list.
Yeah, that's...
I can remember going to a meeting that I think Sammy had sponsored out at Hilton Hall. Mm-hmm. And there was an older gentleman there, and he said, and I hesitate to say that because I've got a lot of gray hair myself, but the gentleman said, whatever you build, do it so we don't have to do this again in 20 years. Voters have concerns, and unless those are addressed, you're fighting an uphill battle with the voters. I'm telling you. And I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying when I talk to people, the feedback that I get is they're kind of like, I don't know. And you don't have much time. When I say you, I'm not referring to you per se, but those that think we really need this SPLOST passed, we're almost too little, too late. Early voting starts Monday. This campaign should have started a year ago. It should have started immediately after the last one. I'm not faulting anybody, but
yep.
We need to educate voters one way or the other soon.
Well, I'll go along with that. Everybody needs to know where they're going, and they need to know how the money is distributed. Now, one of the objections that I have is the disproportionate distribution of the agreement on the SPLOST distributions that are going to be made in the new SPLOST 6. And I still feel that this puts a disproportionate share of these county projects on the back of the unincorporated citizens. The jail and the courthouse is not the sole property of the unincorporated citizens of the county. It belongs to everybody in the county. Therefore, that's why these projects carry Tier 1 status. So with revenue comes responsibility. The SPLOST law has been amended now to where the cities share in the SPLOST revenues. So if they share in those SPLOST revenues and we have a Tier 1 concern, then they should also be expected to share that revenue in per capita proportion with the unincorporated citizens to pay for the infrastructure that carry the Tier 1 status in these projects.
Now, one of the questions would be, though, so $21 million coming into the community, 66% of that goes to the county for use in county-wide projects. So, being that most of the sales tax is generated inside the city limits, whether it be at Walmart in the city of Bremen, Piggly Wiggly at the city of Tallapoosa.
Is Walmart in the city limits?
It's in the city, and Haralson County. Now, Ingalls is Carroll County, so you can't count that. Yeah. As also inside the city of Waco, you're looking at the Love's Truck Stop. One of the interesting things about when we did a retail leakage study, which is where we're trying to figure out where's the money go. I get $100 as a citizen. Where does $100 go when I have to spend it out? You know what the largest percentage of sales tax income for Haralson County is? gas and fuel.
Absolutely, I agree.
So Waco, Walmart's gas
Tallapoosa.
pump, the Tallapoosa, and the pilots and the stuff down there. So, the largest percentage of the income is coming in through the city limits, and they're servicing that infrastructure, the trucks and those type things. But 66% of that $21 million goes towards countywide projects. So if you look at that, to me it seems very fair. In fact, I think that's what killed the last vote, was the cities were upset that the SPLOST, their portion of the SPLOST was too low and that the counties was too large to support these county type projects. So the two cities, Bremen and Tallapoosa, ganged up on it. They said don't pass it, and it didn't. They went in and they negotiated the current percentages, and they feel like it's fair. One of the points of negotiation I've always heard is to where both parties reach a point of indifference. And I think that's kind of where they got. You talk to some of the city officials and they'll say, well, it's not perfect, but we can live with it. The same thing I think at the county. You talk to the county commissioners and they say, well, we would have liked more, but we can live with it. So it seems that they were able to negotiate, at least at an elected level, kind of an equilibrium of how we're going to spread that burden.
Yeah, you have an agreement on that, but now you've got to sell that to the voting populace in unincorporated Haralson County. And the truth of the matter is, what should have been a city contribution to these countywide projects, the unincorporated citizen is going to pick up 21.4% of the city share. And that's going to be a hard sale to the unincorporated citizen of Haralson County.
I don't understand. Where does that number come from? Look it up. I see this page of numbers here.
Okay, that's based on the. I was fortunate enough to be able to sit in on all of the SPLOST negotiations, so I kept up with all of this. So this is based on numbers that were presented by Sharon Sewell and Mayor Bridges, and this is the distribution on what came down with it, what was agreed to in this section right here. So this is where I'm coming up with this, that what should have been a fair share of the city's per capita population is in the first section. What was agreed to is right here, and the difference is right down here. So I base this on what was agreed to with the county and the cities.
Well, one of the things, though, is it says here unincorporated citizens. Is that truly the unincorporated side of the county?
That's the unincorporated side of the county. That does not count. We can split this if you don't want to split hairs at 62-38.
Sure.
In other words, what was agreed to comes down to is the unincorporated citizens are going to pay 83.5 cents per dollar on the debt, and the incorporated citizens are going to pay 16.5 cents on per dollar on the debt.
One of the side, though, and I wonder if this was not part of the agreement, the elected officials in the cities have had some real heartburn with the fact that as a city taxpayer, their constituents are paying more, the same amount of tax for less services from the county, because the city has a police department, the city has a fire department, the city has its own code enforcement, and the city has its own recreation department. And yet they pay the same roughly 13 mills on the property tax that somebody in the unincorporated part of the county pays, whereas the county has its own code enforcement, it has its own various different services. It does make you, and again, I can only speculate, but maybe that was built into this formula so that while the city taxpayers may pay a proportionate less portion of their SPLOST, the sales tax dollar, they are paying a higher portion on the millage dollar, so therefore there's an equalization. I don't know that to be true, but I know that has been a point of contention amongst the mayors and the county commission, that the city, because if the city said, look, I want to pay 2 mills less than the county, let's just say that's the number that worked out, I don't know what it is, let's make it up, it's 2 mills less, well, you can't squeeze a water balloon without the other side getting bigger, so guess whose taxes are going to go up? The unincorporated taxpayer. So it does make you wonder if they were able to work this out using the accounting genius. Again, I'm not going to point out any of our elected officials as accounting geniuses. I'm just saying that maybe that was built into the computation. So,
but
and I will say, as a resident of the unincorporated portion of the county, I use some of the city services. If I go to, and you're right, Walmart is in Bremen. I don't know what I was thinking about, but. If I go to Walmart, I like to see police presence. I see the fire trucks there from Bremen. If I go and I do shop in the city of Bremen itself, down with Atlantic Avenue, whatever the main drag is, I like to know that if I go to one of the stores, that I'm protected. I have no problem with that. I think that splitting the hairs over service to delivery, I don't know what the numbers are, and I've asked a couple of times the commissioners, we're not talking about very much money in terms of what they want to fight over.
No, it's what
I mean, you're probably over a $14 million county budget. You're probably talking what, $200,000-$300,000?
It can't be very much.
So why are we wasting our time on it?
Yeah, that's the adjustments that I see as well, George, on the service to delivery was probably $200,000 to $300,000.
One example was the mayors brought up the issue about the $25 permit fee that we have for the garbage using the convenience centers. I wouldn't mind paying more than $25. Now we're not. We've lost $80-some-thousand in revenue to the county because of that issue. If you live in the city of Bremen and you're paying for that now, use it. If you don't want to pay the $25, don't. Now anybody in the county, including the city residents,
right, you can go by
use it for free.
In the next year, you can just go by and pick up the decal.
They've raised my property taxes, $100, $200 a year, whatever it's going to be. I don't know yet. For $25, it's stupid.
But I think I calculated out the current millage rate increase is going to be $89 per 100,000 is what it's going to be. So, in other words, whether you live in the city or whether you live in the rural section of the county, that's going to be applied fairly because that's going to be based on 40% of the fair market value. So you're going to be taxed in that way proportionally on
I think
the value.
Again, they're splitting hairs because anybody that is in Haralson County, even people who don't live here, use services. It's fungible. And you can't identify. It's like money. It goes in the bank. You can't tell mine from yours.
What I'd like to do at this time is pause for station identification.
WGMI, Bremen, Carrollton, the new 1440, The Train.
It's like a wrestling match. The whistle blows, the hand goes down, and we continue with the conversation about SPLOST here on the all-new WGMI 1440, The Train. Sitting before the potbelly stove, the broadcast table, which has been transformed into the potbelly stove of radio here in West Georgia. We have Ann Krim, Eric McDonald, Nathan Forrester, Susan Forrester, and George Healy. Okay, and we're trying to, and we're just letting them speak as residents of Haralson County. They are speaking whether they're for or they're not in favor of the upcoming SPLOST referendum that you, sitting there drinking coffee and sipping tea and saying, Dr. J, what are you doing? What are you doing this morning? Hey, hey, whoa. Then come to the meetings, my dear listener. Come to the meetings.
He's right.
Come to the meetings. Absolutely.
Well, I've said it before. It's embarrassing to go to a school board meeting and see 2 or 3 people there. Yeah.
It is. And one of the
in the commission meeting, not to interrupt you, but fortunately we've had a better turnout, especially when the shooting range issue comes up or that type of thing. But usually there's maybe 10, 15, 20 people.
Look, last year, November, 16%. Vaughn Gable and I prognosticated. We said 15. Turned out it was 16% of Haralson County registered voters that came to the polls in November last year. If you have, between 13,000, 16,000, I can't remember the number, of registered voters in Haralson County, 16%. It's this tyranny of the minority, so to speak. Few voters, and this is what I'm trying to point out to you that's sitting there drinking coffee and sipping tea. Listen, when it came time for the May primary, about 22% showed up to the polls. For the runoff in July, it went up just slightly to about just under 24%. You can't sit there and tell me that, well, I'm not interested. I'm too busy. No, you have to get involved. I've done everything that I can to bring you information. I don't have this information. I don't live in this county. But I go to the meetings. I try to bring you information. Sure, you could read it in the paper. Okay? I try to bring things out to you that I think you can use. But you have to start coming to these meetings. Oh, I don't have time. I don't want to hear it. You put a Jerkowitz up there in Washington, Now, is that my fault?
Oh, that's good.
It's not my fault. I'm talking to you. Yeah, you. You hear that? I'm speaking to you. This is important. If you're on the fence about SPLOST, well, I hope that you're getting some information this morning, because I'll tell you something. You know, I mean, I've heard everybody say, oh, there's a committee, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. So we have Ann Krim, Eric McDonald, Nathan Forrester, Susan Forrester, and George Healy. Here's our committee at the Potbelly Stove here on the radio. Okay, these are your neighbors. I'm not identifying what it is that they do. Doesn't matter. We all put on our pants and dresses the same way. You need to participate. Look, you got to come out to the polls. The polls officially open for advance voting at the Haralson County Courthouse this Monday. For advance voting at the courthouse this Monday, October 13th through the 31st, which is a Friday, from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. The only Saturday voting is on October 25th from 9 to 4 p.m. Now, it's incumbent upon you to go and do what you have to do. You're going to have to make a decision. You know, Ronnie Kimball said a long time ago to me, may he rest in peace, Jerry, the jail is going to have to be rebuilt. I did provide something that he gave me on paper, in his words. And I tried to recreate what it was that he had on paper. And I broadcast that here several months ago. He said this to me back when he was still the High Sheriff of Haralson County. You know, you're going to have to deal with this issue. I'm off my soapbox. Somebody.
I just like to say I've lived in different parts of the country. Some of them, you know, with a bigger population base than Haralson County. And it's nice to be able to have a working relationship with some of these elected officials. Sure. I did not have that when I lived in DeKalb County. I did not have that when I lived in Florida. I had, contacts, but up here, I mean, I've got people on my cell phone that are elected officials. I can call them and say, "Let me clarify something for you," or "Let me share something with you." That's nice. Take advantage of it. Don't take it for granted.
I agree with you on that. In other words, if I wanted to go speak with Alan Poole,
our doors open.
Doors open. Yeah. I feel that way with the mayors in the county as well. You can call and schedule and sit down with any of the mayors that you want to.
Try that in DeKalb County or Fulton County.
Yep, they're all good. They're all good folks.
Is the SPLOST a tax?
Yeah, it's a new tax, too.
Mm-hmm, yes, it is.
Okay. You know, because there seems to be I've heard in different meetings that the SPLOST is not a new tax.
It's not new.
Not new.
It's a continuation of an existing tax.
Well, no, it isn't a rollover.
This is
a new choice.
It's a new choice, but we've been paying this
We've
tax
been paying it,
since
but
'89.
We've been paying the tax, and just in other words, it has to be a new tax, or it would not be SPLOST 6.
Quote, many have asked if this is an additional tax.
It's not additional.
No, it isn't.
It would be the same rate.
End quote.
For a slightly longer period.
I think the simplest way that, at least I feel, a simple way of explaining SPLOST is, it is a tax that everyone in this county contributes toward when they make a purchase. Anyone shopping in our county contribute toward when making a purchase. So people who are not residents of this county are contributing to the needs of the residents of our county, our cities. Outside individuals are helping to offset the cost of the improvements that we as residents do expect to have. Then otherwise, if we don't have this extra 1 cent to ultimately finance these expectations that we as citizens have from our cities and our county, the money is eventually going to have to come from somewhere.
It sounds like it's a drug.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's a drug.
There you go. That's
You've been
good.
hooked on a drug for a number of years, like former President Bush said, regarding oil. We got to get away from oil. We've been addicted to it, and it sounds like folks have been addicted to SPLOST.
I agree, Jerry. I know when we moved here back in 1989, I think it was 1990 or was it 89, there was the very first SPLOST. And we said, oh, no. Paulding County started this. SPLOST was set up as a temporary tax. It was supposed to just fund one thing and be over and done.
And that was for capital outlay projects.
That was it.
And when SPLOST was first incepted, the cities were not included. This was
That's true.
only
It was a county
tax.
outlay. And yet it's like you're saying, the county has become addicted. Mostly the cities have become addicted to this tax. And it truly is a tax. I mean, it's a tax. You save yourself that penny, and that penny turns into $1. You buy $100 worth of groceries, you've got $1 that you can put back.
But now, one of the key things to remember is it's not the city governments or the county governments that are addicted to that tax. It's us. We demand these services. When I want a fire truck to come to my house, I want it to work. When I want to get on the road, I want it to work, and that's got to be paid for somehow.
Yeah, but it's not the fire trucks. I mean, if I pull this county budget up,
it's a small project.
It's item after, and I'm not being negative about it. I haven't decided yet.
You look at these. But just the county's $14 million projects. $5 million of that's for the jail. I don't know. I'm not smart enough on a jail to know, do we need a new one? Do we need a renovated one? I can't tell you, but when they capture the bad guy that's in my neighborhood, I just want him to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. E911 upgrades. When I call 911, I want it to know where I am. $1 million for recreation, softball fields, baseball fields. Now, I am more of a passive recreation person, but $1 million toward recreation for the kids to get out there and play.
Kids,
childhood obesity is a huge issue.
It is.
We got water. When I turn on the faucet, it's got to work. Public safety, $1.2 million of that is for fire trucks. Now, in some of the larger communities, they don't use SPLOST dollars for an expendable item, which might be considered a fire truck or a police car. We just don't have the tax base to be able to buy those things using the property tax millage that we have. So it's got to come from somewhere.
And I agree with that. SPLOST is a good source of revenue for those public safety issues.
And I would like to add, I would rather them spend more money upgrading our fire services, because if in so doing our insurance rates go down, the ISO rate drops.
Certainly.
In DeKalb and Fulton County, you have an ISO rating of 1. Mine is 7 out here.
Yeah, and one of the
I'd
things...
be more than happy to see my SPLOST money or my property tax money spent to get those
and they're
fire
looking
services
at creating
rated.
Special fire districts in Polk County right now to address that exact fact, whereas if you're in the unincorporated part of the county, your taxes would go up a certain point. In Cobb County, when they did it was 5 mils. But even that 5 mil increase was less than most people's homeowners insurance decrease. So that is certainly a good point.
But again, we're not in Polk.
But we're not.
And I don't know what my commissioners, or what, in your case, the city of Tallapoosa commission members, what are they planning to do with this money to make this better for us?
And I think it's just it's a long-term commitment. $1.6 million in computer systems. It's just looking at here and building, I guess, government improvement is what they call it. That would be nice to know a lot more. They wrote on the side, computer systems, example title search. We got to have their staff's got to be productive.
Yeah, the ballot is actually, what's on the ballot is actually far above and beyond what the law says you have to put on a ballot. I mean, it's
they could just put buckets.
Right. In other words, it can be a bit ambiguous on purpose and be allowable by the law. We all know that. But the last thing I want to say on it is
no, it's not going to be the last thing. What we're going to do is we're going to continue. I'm going to push things up ahead. And this is important.
Okay, but I'm like you. I want that fire truck to work, but I also want it to have something to hook to. They come to my house and the fire truck's there. What are they going to do? Hook to my well? This is what I'm talking about. Sure. SPLOST money has never gone into the proper water distribution infrastructure in the unincorporated county. So this has been 25 years that I've been here. We saw a good bit of expansion. The only time I did see it in the unincorporated areas was SPLOST money was used under Amos Sparks, and he did a lot of improvement on expanding the water structure on it. We're still sitting out in the county with an antiquated water distribution system. This is hurting everybody. It don't matter whether you live in the city. It don't matter whether you live in Buncombe. It don't matter whether you live up in Colson Corner. It hurts everybody because this affects our ability to be able to attract new business.
Oh, absolutely.
And the number one resource for residential or economic growth is water, and we have never put the proper amount of money into the water system.
I guess the question then comes when you look at this list, and we're just looking at this list here, and it's got
And that list is just from Bremen.
No, this is from just the county, so it doesn't include the incorporated
okay.
projects.
Okay.
When you look at this list and you say, okay, well, so I've got $1.4 million for water infrastructure. Where do I get? Say I need $5 million. We're making numbers up here today. So $5 million to get that up.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, where do I get the extra money? So if I squeeze the balloon, where's it going to come from? Am I going to take it from the jail? I'm certainly not going to be able to squeeze it out of the consumer because they're only going to pay so much in SPLOST over a 6-year period. Where do I squeeze that balloon? And I think this is the negotiated list that is the best of all the evils, because they've got to figure out how to do those things with a limited amount of money.
I agree completely, and actually the state legislator and the governors gave us 2 instruments to be able to fund those projects. One is the local option sales tax, which really now has just become it's a
sales tax too.
It's a sales tax, but it's basically a mandatory thing. The cities get this and the counties get that, and there's no discussion on it. So with the local option sales tax and the special purpose, they gave us 2 instruments to be able to pay for these things. Now, I was in Paulding County in 1975 when the local option sales tax came about. People in Paulding County understood that growth was coming whether we wanted it or not. So we had to get prepared on it. I happened to be sitting there talking with Robert Lane and with Arthur Fudger in 1975 when we were talking about voting this lost in. And we were talking about what needed to be done, and we suggested that instead of rolling back property tax immediately with the local option sales tax, that the money go into water distribution for Paulding County. So this was the inception of the water distribution that led to the economic and residential growth that Paulding County experienced over the last, over the next 2 decades.
So we have you to blame for all that?
We have me to blame for all that because we looked at it, and the people of Paulding County agreed that if they took the bond and used the money from the local option sales tax to pay off the bond, to pay for the water system. So my dad was on a well, voted for it. It took 2 years for the water distribution to get out there past him. So in late 1977, early 1978, I dug the water line, helped my dad hook up the water system because the people had enough foresight to put it in to the things not seen. This is the greatest and best use of SPLOST, are not the things that you see above ground, but the things that you see below ground. Infrastructure is the things that you don't see is with the attention of SPLOST.
One of the things I question too, when you build a rec center, now you have to have people to staff it, which a lot of times isn't factored in. It
can't be factored in. It has to be.
No, I know it can't be factored in, but it'd be nice to know. And I did talk to our elected reps. I know I talked to Trey Kelly about it. I don't know about Kevin. I may have, but I think there should be a requirement for whoever wants this project to say, what's this thing going to cost in the long run?
This is another reason,
and
George.
the chairman, I mean, to Chairman Poole's credit, he's mentioned that when you build these things, it costs money to operate.
Right. In other words, this is why it's special purpose. It was never meant to be perpetually on the ballot. We are not the ATM of the county and the cities, as citizens of Haralson County. And It was never meant to be perpetual. That's why it's called special. You can actually, in Haralson County, we are what is known as a spatial taxation district. In other words, we have such a huge advantage of money coming in off the interstate at the truck stops, like we mentioned before, on fuel, that we've had a huge advantage over the years with this. If we had put that money into proper infrastructure, we would have experienced the growth that would have elevated the population, which would have increased the tax base, which would contribute to the general fund.
So now we're playing catch up.
Well,
we're
so
way behind
I got to
on
disagree
general
with
fund.
that. The industrial development, and I mean, that's what I do. I go out there and try to get industries to look at the community. They're going to look at defined business parks, which are typically in the city, with one exception, is Georgia West, which is adjacent to Buckhannon.
Right.
Of course, Buckhannon is footing the infrastructure.
They
for
are.
that.
They are doing that.
But all of our industrial parks are going to be close to an interstate. They're going to be close to a major highway, and all of those and all of that infrastructure was there, paid for by the taxes of the past. Now, one of the things is, it's certainly great to go and say, hey, let's bring a local option sales tax into the community and let's put it toward infrastructure. Well, somewhere in the past, we did decide, sins of the past, to just roll back the property tax millage rate.
Yes, sir. That's what it finally came to.
So now we're at that point where we can't really argue that point anymore, because we're either at, okay, let's unroll back or otherwise increase the local millage, or let's try to find another way out to do these projects. One of the things that I like about SPLOST, and I told this to somebody, I said, look, SPLOST, they're never perfect. They never will be perfect. It's like pizza. Even a bad one's good, because 30% of our money comes from somebody else. So if somebody walked up to you and said, Eric, I'd like to pay for your house, 30% of your house. Do you mind if I pay for 30% of your house and your car? I'd say, yeah, sure, thanks, that's great. And that's the way we have to look at it. Are we going to get it perfect? No. Are we going to get it close? As much as humans and elected officials who are getting pulled from all over can do it. But we've got to do these projects if we want industrial and business development. You're exactly right.
I agree with that.
Are you saying that 30% of the sales tax revenue, the lost revenue, and the SPLOST revenue is from fuel sales along the interstate?
No, 30% just comes from somewhere else. That's the number. The number's actually huge. Somewhere between the numbers I hear are 35 to almost 51.
But you're
I don't
saying
believe
not,
51.
not
I go
from Haralson
conservative.
County
That's
residents.
correct. Our neighbors. So if you drive, and let's just do an anecdotal drive on your way around, get your listeners to do this. If you're sitting out there, when you drive through the Walmart parking lot, look at the tags. When you drive through the parking lot at Piggly Wiggly in Tallapoosa, look at the tags. Look at the tags at Love's Truck Stop, at the Pilot, and you'll see every time one of those folks comes into the community, they're tossing a penny in a bucket that our elected officials are going to turn around and use to deliver services that we demand. Now, are they services that everybody demands?
No.
No. But they're services that are demanded. So it's not perfect, but it is the best vehicle that we have.
Some portion of that sales tax revenue will be generated by visitors, in other words.
Yes.
But keep in mind that I also shop in Haralson County.
Certainly.
I shop in Paulding County. So it's kind of tit for tat.
It is.
Some portion of it. Most of what I buy is here. And when you go through and look at these truck stops along the way, they do, when you fill up with 300 gallons of fuel at $4 a gallon for diesel, that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
What I'd like to do is now introduce the women and get the female perspective. Ann Krim and Susan Forrester, you're both 21 plus a day.
How kind.
You're welcome. So, how does this affect you as the matriarchs of your homes?
Well, in my case, I was trying to think about that this morning. How is it different for a woman from a man? It's kind of hard to say, but I guess thinking back to when, especially when our children were young and you're struggling, I don't know how people do it nowadays with the inflation the way it is, and I don't care what the government says. Gas and food is inflation, and they are highly inflated right now, and it's very difficult to get groceries, to buy gas when you have young children in school. It's very difficult. My hat's off to all of you out there who do that. I know it's not easy, but when you think about that, and it's like I said before, every penny counts, literally. Every penny counts. I can remember when my kids were little and I would tell them, do not, leave pennies all over the floor, nickels. They say, big deal. Let's put them in the piggy bank. Like, it adds up. It becomes more. And to me, it would be a case of, like I said, you're gonna spend $100 in groceries if you're lucky. You're only going to spend $100 in groceries a week, and that's $1. If you look at SPLOST, if you say that's $1 for every time you go to buy groceries every week, and I could take that $1 and I could say put that in the piggy bank, so to speak, at the end of the year you got $52 if you just go once a week. To me, it's savings. Of course, I also come from this perspective of the Tea Party. We are taxed enough already. I say get rid of any and all taxes you possibly can. People talk about the fair tax. The trouble is, the fair tax is only fair when you do away with the income tax. Only then. When you have a sales tax and an income tax, it's just double taxation. It's just extra taxation. So that's the only thing I can think of that would be any different from a woman's perspective.
Ann?
I see your point. I truly see your point. I've raised children. I do see your point. However, I have to acknowledge the needs and expectations of the residents to have the cities and the county provide certain services. Maybe I'm spoiled. Maybe a lot of us are spoiled. But as Eric said, I want to know when I flush that toilet, it's going away. I want to know when I turn on that spigot at the sink that I'm going to get good, clean water. I want to know my trash is going to be picked up every week, which I pay additional for that on my city bill. I want to know the roads are going to last for a long time. I'm not going to have to worry about tearing up a wheel or a tire when I'm going down one of the roads. I want to know the bridges are safe. I want to know the fire trucks are going to be there and they're not going to have a blowout or their engine fails on their way. I want to know when one of our sheriff's deputies or policemen, I want to know that automobile they're driving is safe for them, because I expect them to do whatever is necessary to pursue a criminal. I want to know their automobile is safe. They aren't going to blow an engine or blow a tire because they're being expected to drive cars that are way, way past their life expectancy. And no, I don't like taxes. I don't think you'll find anybody in this county that likes taxes. However, I do have to say, in my personal opinion, I would rather pay that extra 1 penny on everything I purchase in this county than to see my property tax bill increased in order for me as a citizen to continue receiving these services that I have certainly grown accustomed to.
But did not taxes get raised at the end of July in the county?
That's absolutely correct.
So therefore, I'm just saying, look, I don't want to pay any more taxes than anybody else. Mm-hmm. But the point is, taxes are, they're not
it's a
going
fact
back.
Of life.
Nothing's been rolled back.
No, taxes are a fact of life, but we have to learn, in my opinion, to distinguish between our property taxes that are currently funding county and city operation budgets.
But you've had kids.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell me that, you can't sit there and tell me that you haven't paid more in school taxes. Where's that money coming from?
Well, I will tell you.
There's a lot going on, and as I said, you sitting at home or in your vehicle, or if you're listening via the internet, on social media, however you're doing it, you know what I'm talking about. I may not talk about it on the radio. Look, the schools here in Haralson County, folks pay a lot of money for those school boards.
I agree.
Okay?
You know
got
what?
That's why I have you two as women sitting at the potbelly stove. Come on.
As a senior citizen,
I didn't say that.
I'm saying it.
Okay.
I am strongly opposed to the amount of my annual tax bill for school tax.
Absolutely.
I'm strongly opposed to that because we have so many residents of this county in rental properties, to say the least, with 4, 5, 6 children in school. My property tax is funding that.
Yes.
I would rather see school tax be eliminated from my property tax, and I would pay you a nickel on the dollar to know that that nickel is being spent within our county and within our cities to provide the services that we expect to receive.
Now this is fascinating to me. This is what I'm very interested in knowing, because this is a difference between city and country. Because all those things you named out,
you don't receive.
I don't receive, and I'm not even used to. I mean, when I turn the water on, I may have mud. I mean,
Right.
At one time we had we didn't have a drilled well. We had a bored well, and during all that time that, we had the drought, we were getting mud. I mean, we're not going to call the county. We got to go drill a well.
Right.
And we had to drill a well. I'm on a septic tank. Sometimes you flush it, and it don't go down. I mean,
I've experienced that.
This is entirely, I'm just fascinated because never having lived in a city, I mean, we don't have garbage pickup. We live on a dirt road. We live on the dead end of a dirt road that gets worked once every 6 years if we're lucky, and I'm serious about this. In fact, Nathan many times has got his tractor and scraped the road himself because the county, we know, doesn't have a lot of funds, and we feel as citizens we have some responsibility in keeping up even though it's a county road. It's just a different perspective, and I just find that fascinating.
Well, I mean,
because
here we
it's a
sit.
different perspective.
That's why you both
We
get
have
to
the
take-
country mouse and the
Yes,
city mouse.
Yeah, we're the different. And out with us, I mean, it's like grow your own food, have your own water. We don't call an ambulance. Out where we live, it would take an ambulance 45 minutes to get to us. We don't call an ambulance. I've had to take Nathan to the emergency room like twice over the years. I took him. We didn't even think of 911. 911's never been called in our household a single time. Only time I've ever called the sheriff for noisy neighbors up the road, I called it directly to the sheriff. We don't use 911. So all these things are just not part of what we use. And so I just find it very fascinating.
Well, that's why we have a totally different perspective.
We do, indeed. I
Totally
think that's a
different.
lot of it. I really do. And I just find this a fascinating conversation.
That's why I wanted you. I invited you both.
See, two ladies can agree to disagree much nicer than men can.
I think so.
All right. Is there anything else that you'd like to bring up?
Get out and vote. I think you were
Absolutely.
very right about that. And I'm telling you, listeners, don't sit this election out. I'm so disappointed, just like Dr. Jerry said. We are not going to have the perfect candidates. I don't think there is a perfect candidate. But if you set out this last presidential election, shame on you. You cast your vote for that man that's in there just as well as anybody that put yes beside his name. Don't set this election out. We have a governor. We've got to get out there. We've got to make sure that this state stays on the right track. We have got to make sure that we get the Senate back so that we can kind of control this crazed president. Don't sit this one out because your person didn't get the nomination. Please, 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 don't sit out this election.
Ms. Krim?
Well, you're going all out on the election. I'm going to narrow it a little bit. I'm going to encourage you to vote either for or against, however you choose to ultimately make your decision regarding SPLOST 6. But do get out and vote. If you don't vote, you have absolutely no right to sit back in your rocking chair and complain
Amen.
that it wasn't done the way you wanted it
Amen.
done. So get your information straight. Call. Ask questions.
Yes.
Ask your officials questions. That is your right. But by all means, try your best to make an informed decision.
We attempted to do that here at the Potbelly Stove on the all-new WGMI 1440 The Train, as well as online at www.1440thetrain.com. And Krim, Susan Forrester, Eric McDonald, and Nathan Forrester, and George Healy, if they're out there, I say thank you for joining us here.
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity.
I hope it helped.
I'm sure it did.
Okay. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
And thank you at home, sitting there, or wherever you happen to be, if you're in your vehicle, or if you're listening to us via the internet, via, one of these handheld devices. I don't know. What do I know? I don't know anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue with our regularly scheduled program, but because this was a special broadcast regarding the SPLOST 6 referendum that's coming up on November 4th, if you're registered to vote, remember, advance voting at the Haralson County Courthouse begins Monday, October 13th through Friday, October 31st, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday, the only Saturday this month, will be October 25th between 9 and 4, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So if you want to do the advance voting deal, there you have it.
The views and opinions expressed in this commentary do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the owners or operators of WGMI.
WGMI, Bremen, Carrollton, the new 1440, The Train.